The Cold As You guy starts off with gray walls. John likes to pretend they're blue at first. Probably because the muse of Cold As You wasn't twice your age, but go off, queen. Hey guys, it's Nicole. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel if you are new here. Don't forget to subscribe. I like to post about books and music, mostly Taylor Swift. If I look rougher than usual today, it's 100% because it is 107 degrees outside. Literally going out makes my entire body feel ill because I've just been sitting inside and working. If you're in Texas or like the deep south, you're probably laughing at me right now. Oh, why is the US like this? But I'm just gonna try to get this filmed and done before these lights heat up my room too much. So today I'm going to be going through the evolution of Taylor Swift's track 5s and how the selection of the track 5 has changed over the years. If you are unaware, each track 5 on a Taylor Swift album typically is the most devastatingly personal and vulnerable song on the album. I'm just going to get right into the analyzation without elaborating anymore because it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense without the timeline. So this was before Taylor ever confirmed or maybe even realized what she was doing when she was putting the most heart-wrenching songs as track 5s. I don't think she ever even acknowledged it until at least 1989. Definitely during the Lover era she did because she released The Archer before the rest of the album. But I remember once we got to the Red era and All Too Well came out, people would just post about it on Tumblr all the time like, hey, what the fuck are these track 5s doing, making us just bawl our eyes out all the time? So that's very much what they initially stood for. And we see this with Cold As You. The only song that can really compete with this one in the sadness department on the standard edition is Tied Together With a Smile. But since track 5s are very personal to Taylor, we see why Cold As You beat it out. It's not only sad, but it's about her, while Tied Together With a Smile is about her friend who was struggling with an ED. The lyrics are incredible for her age, and we see her starting to write with this scathing attitude with lines like, I've never been anywhere cold as you, and every smile you fake is so condescending, counting all the scars you make. Even ain't no use defending words that you will never say. We see that attitude repeat on a future track 5 with All Too Well, and I was never good at telling jokes, but the punchline goes, I'll get older, but your lovers stay my age. This one makes a lot of sense as a track 5 because it is just packed with raw emotion, and while it's not metaphorical or imaginative like its predecessor White Horse, it's highly self-aware in describing wanting to start a fight because she recognizes that she feels numb and she wants to feel something instead. It has very original lines that are describing super relatable feelings. You come away with a great little story of a mess of a dreamer with the nerve to adore you. Someone else writing at that age might have just said something like, you're now telling all your friends about how much I did for you. The bridge is packed with some good track 5 melodrama. You know you wouldn't have told nobody if I died for you. Later paralleled in All Too Well again a little bit with And That Made Me Want to Die. The only other contenders I see for track 5 on this album are Breathe and You're Not Sorry. Both are wonderful songs I would have also enjoyed as a track 5 on Fearless, but going with White Horse gives this album's track 5 a little more longevity because it's an extended fairy tale metaphor that Taylor was famous for in her early career. But she spins it around and adds this element of coming of age since she realizes that life is not actually like a fairy tale. It really helps with the development and themes of Fearless being about those childhood fairy tales, love story, or the princess references in The Best Day, and also the themes of growing up as we see in 15 or the multiple mentions of a first kiss. I think in just Fearless and 15, there might be more. Where do those lines blur? Where do you leave the idealized version of life behind? With the song White Horse, it bridges the gap between those two ideas so nicely, and that's why I think it's so beloved to this day. Lyrically, it's not as original as Cold As You, and it does utilize some cliches such as I honestly believed in you, got lost in your eyes, and never really had a chance. I had so many dreams about you and me, happy endings, now I know. The bridge is also quite weak, similarly to Cold As You's bridge, even if Cold As You did spice it up with the I would have died for you melodrama. However, where White Horse shines is the imagery, particularly in the chorus. She talks about Hollywood movies, fairy tales, showing her this example for a relationship. It's very visual. Also, she calls herself a dreamer in both of the first two track 5s, which I think is interesting. We're picturing stairwells in small towns, horses, and rear view mirrors. She's feeding us visuals, which was not happening as much in Cold As You, as much as her just using unique ways of describing her feelings. So I think these first two tracks are kind of like foils of each other in that way. Cold As You gave us unique lines and vocabulary for a 16-year-old, and White Horse gave us visuals and an extended metaphor. So we continue to follow the devastating path of track 5s. I would say if this was a movie could be its competition, but that was a bonus track, so it's already on thin ice. I do love that one so much though. That guitar is so beautiful. Last Kiss is the only other possibility I could see on the standard edition. And the reason I think she subconsciously, because I don't think she was aware at this point either, chose Dear John is because it's a full-on fucking diary entry. She put this man on blast. His goddamn name is in the title. It's a play on a Nicholas Sparks novel, which are typically tearjerkers as well. This is the final email to the douchebag. So this choice seems obvious. We should have known that All Too Well was coming after this one because she was serving us visuals and language. She starts it off with this sexy little thing she likes to do with sentences. Long were the nights when my days once revolved around you. Gold was the color of the leaves. I love that so much. I forgot exactly what that technique is called, but it's employed in poetry often. Instead of saying the nights were long, you say long were the nights. Is it giving Yoda? Maybe, but it's also giving intellectual call out. The first verse reminds me of Cold as You, with the inspiration of the song painting colors for Taylor. In Cold as You, he was painting gray, but in this one, he starts off painting blue, but it's a trick. He turns that blue into a rainy day. Lots of similar metaphors to Cold as You, actually, but in this case, the person it's about was sneaky. She was naive once more because he didn't show her who he was right off the bat, like with how transparent the subject of Cold as You was. The Cold as You guy starts off with gray walls. John likes to pretend they're blue at first, probably because the muse of Cold as You wasn't twice your age, but go off, queen. And we finally get a standout bridge on a track 5, the first of many. It's beautifully descriptive, but it also shows Taylor's age when she says, all the girls that you've run dry have tired, lifeless eyes because you burned them out, but I took your matches before fire could catch me. Then in the next track 5, she just gives them to Jake Gyllenhaal, but that's besides the point. Anyways, she does that whole I'm not like the other girls thing that she was notorious for back in the day, saying she'll be different, she won't be like all the other girls that were ruined by him. So definitely very old Taylor, but I could see why this would be someone's favorite bridge of hers. Overall, it's a great track 5. It's absolutely timeless and it serves its purpose as a track 5. How do I even begin to analyze this? So many others have done it better than I could. As far as other contenders from this album, I could see I Almost Do and especially Sad, Beautiful, Tragic being in the running if All Too Well was not such a masterpiece. I think Taylor was correct in saying she did take the matches from John Mayer. Like, she really did somehow avoid a lot of trauma from that creep, but then she just gets that from Jake Gyllenhaal. Speak Now would not be what it was if John hurt her like Jake did. I almost got their names mixed up. She needs to stop going after J names. And we also never would have gotten Red if Taylor was hurt by John the same way Jake hurt her. Because if something that bad would have happened with John, she never would have gone after Jake. Why are they both 4 letters too? But she did. So buckle up and grab your matches because we are now burning red. It actually really hits when you think about how she was like, ha, I took your matches before fire could catch me. And then she literally gives those matches to Jake and we get burning red. Has anyone ever noticed that lyrical parallel before? I don't think I have much to say about this one other than it is the prime example of a track 5. And if Cold as You and White Horse were foil sisters of each other, All Too Well and Dear John also go hand in hand. Shitty older men, not learning your lesson, still being naive, serving both visuals and unique lines and metaphors. These last 2 tracks are the biggest jumps in her songwriting improvement so far. And then we arrive here. All You Had to Do Was Stay was a strange choice. I think at the time 1989 came out, everyone was a little confused and trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. I can't remember if she addressed it or not. I feel like she did in saying something like, guys, it's not about the sound, it's about the lyrics. But I'm too lazy to check right now. I'm just going off my memory from when I was like 15, so I'd say this is lyrically the weakest. I understand the cool story behind her having that dream that her ex showed up and the only thing that could come out of her mouth was that high-pitched stay that we hear as the backup vocals in the song. I get it's like this love, but she rejects him instead of letting it come back to her, but it's pretty cliche. I don't think she was striving for a track 5 here. I think she was striving for a radio-friendly breakup song. You're calling me up, but I don't know what to say. Cliche. Also, she sounds like she doesn't really know what to say in the lyrics. I've been picking up the pieces of the mess you made. That's another line that's been in like a million other songs. The bridge brings tears to my eyes in a bad way because I don't understand how we went from Dear John and All Too Well to This Was What You Wanted, You Ended It. You Were All I Wanted, but not like this. I like this as a song, don't get me wrong. It's a bop and I enjoy it. It's not bad, but as a track 5, this is when she starts to drive us off the road. It really doesn't make much sense, but I don't see what else she was supposed to do other than maybe Out of the Woods. I think Out of the Woods would actually kind of slap as a track 5, but that would be still the highest energy one we've had so far, unless it was some kind of piano version like in that Grammys museum video, I think. And this one just stands on its own. I see no parallels with any other track 5s before or after. She's just the weird one. No one talks to her. Okay, now we're getting into just straight up bizarre choices because not only does this song slap like a sensual club track inspired by Drake, the lyrics are borderline happy. If no one has ever cried to a track 5, I'm already a little dissatisfied. I've definitely cried to All You Had to Do Was Stay maybe once or twice. Who can cry to Delicate, bitch? To be fair, I don't think there's a track 5 on Reputation. She should have just skipped it like some hotels skip the 13th floor on the elevator. It just goes from 12 to 14. I think I've cried to Dancing with Our Hands Tied. I think even that's a little bit of a stretch, so I'm just gonna analyze what we've got. Delicate is so hopeful while every track before it has been hopeless. You Must Like Me for Me. Dive Bar on the East Side, Where You At? Even in the music video, she's looking for him with these like first date butterflies and she has this really hopeful look in her eyes. She's in Heat. Just think of the fun things we could do. Do the girls back home touch you like I do? I hate reading it like it's slam poetry. Long Nights with Your Hands Up in My Hair. She's first attempting to seduce this man and then successfully does so and tries to play it off as a legit track 5, all because she succeeds, but then she's still like, stay here, I don't want to share. Is this okay? We can't make any promises, but we can still have fun. It's the state before becoming official. To everyone but her, I'm sure Joe seems just as head over heels. He's so obsessed with you and you should understand. But to her, it feels like it's going to fall apart at any minute or she's going to be rejected. I mean, I've been there when you like someone, but you are sometimes so nervous that you can't even tell that they also blatantly, obviously like you back. So it's kind of about that vulnerable feeling. It's just not devastating in any sense of the word. It's a nervous declaration of love that's very similar to some of the songs on Debut and Fearless. Taylor reverts back to her nervous, giddy 17-year-old self, and she's even described it as such on Lover with I Think He Knows. It just doesn't make sense, but again, do not get me wrong. I really like this song. It ranks pretty high for me on the album. I'm just critiquing it in the context of track 5s, and this doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I think I would have preferred Dancing with Our Hands Tied, but there's nothing on this album that is an obvious alternative, so I guess this is fine. I take that back. Dancing with Our Hands Tied is just, it's so hopeless. She wrote it after like crying for a couple hours because the paparazzi found out about her and Joe. Like, it's so personal and vulnerable. And the bridge, I'd kiss you as the lights went out, swaying as the room burned down, I'd hold you as the water rushes in. She's like describing a full-on natural disaster. I think I've cried to it before too. I think that would have been a better choice. I have a very fun, controversial opinion you guys like to yell at me about, and it's called I would have preferred Cornelia Street as track 5 on Lover. People also like to take that as I hate The Archer. I like it, it's pretty good. Lyrically more than musically too, which I'll always prefer lyrics to music. People also get offended by that because for some reason, most of my subscribers specifically have it like in their top 10. And for me, it's like top 50 maybe. One of you guys that I follow back called me out in a fucking TikTok or Instagram reel or something. Subtweet me, see if I care. If the shoe fits, I will comment on it. My reasoning being that Cornelia Street feels like a part 2 to Delicate. So that is the only way these last 2 songs really make sense to me as track 5s, is if they are bigger than themselves. For All You Had to Do Was Stay, I Have No Hope. That one doesn't make any sense in the context of track 5s, but these two could really just go hand in hand. Lover and Reputation are already like foils of each other. Delicate and Cornelia Street are 2 sides of the same coin as well. Cornelia Street uses the same drum as Delicate. It's the exact same, oh I know he says he loves me, but what if he leaves feeling. But in Delicate, it's before the relationship, and in Cornelia Street, it's during the relationship. That makes that feeling much more interesting and prominent, and makes more sense to write about as a track 5 if you are doing it twice at this point. They could be fun little sister songs, but we got The Archer instead. And I understand why The Archer is relatable and Anxious Girlies Unite, but who has ever really cried to it? I mean, I'm trying to think what songs you can cry to on Lover, because I wouldn't even really say Cornelia Street. It depends if that relationship has ended for you, because I've definitely seen people crying to Cornelia Street. Because if you have a Cornelia Street, that hurts. I think there's the same problem with the Lover album as 1989. It's just very high-spirited and happy. This song is more about herself, which we have not seen on a track 5 up to this point, but it does have some nice sprinklings in of self-sabotage in the context of a relationship, with lines like, I search for your dark side, but what if I'm all right here? There's a lot of really good lines in this song, and a commentary on how hard it is to be with her. Did the archer walk so peace could run? It also walked so Mirrorball could run. If Mirrorball was a track 5, this also would make a little bit more sense to me in the bigger picture. I mean, we also have several Taylor Swift albums to go though, so maybe at some point there will be some kind of tie-in. I really like those tie-ins that I've observed so far, and I think they are pretty indicative of a track 5, something that kind of encompasses multiple ideas she's played with in albums. There's nice visuals in it of a room on fire full of smoke, self-awareness with I never grew up, it's getting so old. The bridge is not as interesting as some other track 5s, but it's still pretty solid. It seems repetitive and simple at first with They See Right Through Me, Can You See Right Through Me, I See Right Through Me. But honestly, the live version slaps. A little more anger and a harder beat in the studio version, and it would have really utilized that repetition to just drive that point home. The repetition in this song doesn't fall flat like it kind of does with All You Had to Do Was Stay. She uses it sparingly, and yeah, it's not as detailed and heart-wrenching as the other track 5 bridges, but it's got potential for live performances. It uses raw emotion, kind of like Cold As You does, with that cliche little melodrama of dying for this person. The live version just gives me goosebumps. And then the bridge doesn't end there. She does give us some cool lines towards the end of it that aren't repetitive. She gives us the old Humpty Dumpty. Literally, that's not a euphemism for anything. And the iconic line, because all of my enemies started out friends. But that section is technically just the final pre-chorus, but it's still good she followed up the bridge with that, and she changes every pre-chorus. I like it. It feels like an extension of the bridge. It still doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me as a track 5, similarly to Delicate. It definitely makes more sense to me than Delicate, but really the solution to just have them both make more sense would be to just let Delicate and Cornelia Street be sister track 5s. As far as its competition on the album, other than Cornelia Street, Soon You'll Get Better is a doozy. It's the Marjorie of Lover, it's the epiphany of Lover, but like those songs, it doesn't make sense as a track 5 because the story is about someone else. At this point, Taylor did publicly describe track 5s as not only vulnerable but personal. Track 5s need to be about Taylor mostly. Either her being sabotaged or her sabotaging herself needs to be the main element. That's the trend we've seen so far up to this point. So at this point, it is not just a devastating song. Death by 1,000 Cuts is pretty sad. It's beautiful and it has amazing lyrics, but it one, slaps a little too hard, and 2, it's not personal. She wrote it about a movie. Who here has cried to Death by 1,000 Cuts? I want to know. I feel like I have. Maybe once or twice. There is not much you can cry to, like really cathartically on Lover, other than Soon You'll Get Better. So Cornelia Street really is the only other option I see here, and I bet Taylor considered it too. It makes so much sense with Delicate being the one right before it. Then we have Folklore, which I bet was nearly impossible to choose a track 5 for. We've got The One, Exile, Mirrorball, which as I said would have been a really nice nod to The Archer. This Is Me Trying, Illicit Affairs, and Hoax, all as some nice devastating contenders. I did not name Epiphany, even if it is the saddest for reasons I explained in the last one. I think this was a pretty solid choice. My Tears Ricochet is, in my opinion, the first time she's really made sense with a track 5 since Red. She had a lot of options to choose from. I think Illicit Affairs is a little more devastating with that bridge, and I maybe would have picked that, but I'm really just not mad about this in any way. Also, Illicit Affairs is not personal at all. I think she created some characters for that one, and this was after the point when she literally told us that all of the track 5s are personal. But also, with a whole album pretty much full of track 5s, she's not going to please everybody with her selection. If you think you have a better choice for track 5 on this album, please let me know in the comments. I would love to hear your reasoning. So this one is another very personal one that is actually not about a breakup. Well, at least from her perspective. I understand the kind of like embittered tormentor thing and everything, but through her own experience, it is not actually reflective of a breakup. She's been upfront about the muse continues. So she went from defining a track 5 as devastating up until 1989, and then defining it as a little worried, and then we go back again to this personal and again kind of devastating meaning on Folklore and Evermore, and vulnerable. It's directly about Scott Borchetta betraying her. She compares it to a divorce in the Long Pond sessions. She compares it to being dead in the actual lyrics of the song. It definitely has relationship vibes. I think she was playing with personal themes being employed into a fictional world for the very first time on a track 5. She's writing about Scott, but this character that she's breathing life into is being tormented by a lover even in death. She makes it very personal with, "You wear the same jewels that I gave you as you bury me." She really feels like Scott killed a part of her. He took the money she could make for him and then just tried to shut her up, bury her. She mentions stolen lullabies in the bridge. That meaning is obvious. Crossing out the good years, cursing my name, wishing I stayed. He forgot the entire good business relationship that they had together in favor of Scooter's high-paying dollar, but he's also wishing she stayed on his label so that he could sell it for even more money. It's incredibly personal and it makes sense as a track 5 even if you're not crying to it or it's not as universally relatable. You can tell it was something that she cried over. Now, we should definitely remember what she said after releasing The Archer, in that track 5s are very personal and vulnerable. I understand that Tolerated is from the perspective of that Rebecca character from that one movie, but she is fully breathing herself into this character like she did with the My Tears Ricochet character. She's not as upfront about this at all, but she is being reminded of a torment from her youth. In this character, my money's on John or Jake. I'm leaning more towards John because this character really makes me think of Dear John. You're so much older and wiser. This character is so eager to impress, and he just doesn't give a shit. He thinks she takes up too much space and time. She's begging for footnotes in the story of his life. It's giving never impressed by me acing your tests. She's just screaming for attention in this relationship. This person is no longer putting up the front they had in the beginning of their relationship. Where's that man who threw blankets over my barbed wires? Wondering which version of you I might get on the phone. I made you my temple, my mural, my sky. Mural and sky. You paint me a blue sky, then go back and turn it to rain. Hi, I'm editing right now. Please excuse my chapped lip, but I came up with some more lyrical parallels. So Superman is supposedly inspired by the same relationship that Dear John is about. I watched Superman fly away. He's got a busy day today. I'll be right here on the ground when you come back down. When you were out building other worlds, where was I? Taking matches also sounds like taking this dagger in me and removing it, like preventing them from physically destroying you. There's also the lyrical parallel of Battle Hero and Superman, like putting this guy on a pedestal. You leave, got places to be, and I'll be okay, as well as wishing the flowers were from you, wishing the card was from you, wishing the call was from you, and then it shifts into begging for footnotes. Superman is kind of like Tolerated from this kind of optimistic housewife perspective, and I haven't seen anyone anywhere making this connection that Rebecca is but a vessel for her to continue writing about a feeling she had when she was young, specifically to do with how John made her feel, but we wouldn't even know who it was if she wouldn't have so blatantly written the first one titled Dear John. It genuinely wouldn't be so obvious. This is genuinely the smartest way she could have done this with no one being onto her, because people ripped her apart for releasing the 10-minute version of All Too Well, which is so obviously about Jake that if she blatantly elaborated more on her feelings from when she was 19, people would lay into her for bringing up John, when she's really just bringing up her past self. This just goes to show that her writing is, at least in more recent years, never to just call somebody out and make them feel like shit. She has feelings she wants to get out. She even has feelings that she felt a long time ago that she just wants to put a new lyrical spin on. The man truly has nothing to do with it. My observation is that it's the same feeling from Dear John. She's writing about that time in her life and she's very cleverly projecting that onto a fictional character. Middle-aged authors write about their teen heartbreaks all the time through characters with different names, and they're never called out for it. We just happen to know who this heartbreak is because she was very, very vocal about it back in the day. So because of that Dear John tie-in and that very mature way of continuing the art on the down low, I love this as a track 5. The only competition would have been Champagne Problems, which I love and is in my top 3 of her entire discography, but there's no cool reference to any other track 5, I don't think, which is like pretty common if all my analyzations are correct. It's also not personal like track 5s are required to be. Champagne Problems definitely feels like it's it's about a fictional character, unless that whole she rejected Tom Hiddleston's proposal conspiracy is true. It's insane, look it up. Happiness would have been nice, but again, I think it's about Abigail's divorce, not her own. Coney Island is not very personal either, I don't think. Marjorie's about her grandmother, not her, even if it is the saddest song. And Evermore might be the strongest contender because it does seem quite personal, like when she was going through a hard time herself. Again, like with Folklore, please let me know if another track is your preferred track 5 and why. I definitely could see a lot of arguments being made for some of these other songs. I feel like Alternatives might be the most popular for these last 2 albums because there are just so many options. I'm more open to the idea of changing Folklores because I love the whole Dear John Tolerate It thing, lyrical parallels, but the album I feel strongest about swapping is The Archer for Cornelia Street. With Folklore and Evermore, I pretty much don't really have a strong opinion because I'm just overwhelmed with choices. I'm like, sure, sounds good, but I could also see why something else would have been good. And now we get into my tier ranking of track 5s. This is just very personal, not as much objective. Gonna go through it quickly because this video is so long already. All Too Well is her best song ever, so this is my obvious number 1. It's also my favorite song, thank God. I don't understand how some people can walk the line of agreeing that it is her best song, but also having a completely separate favorite Taylor Swift song. I'd be too confused in every aspect of my life. The production is perfect in every version. The lyrics are mind-blowing. It only gets better with age. Next is Tolerate It because I love the vulnerability and the sadness and the tie-ins to her former heartbreak. It's also written in a very unique time signature for pop music. This is compliments of Aaron Dessner 100%. This also happened with Closure, I believe. It's got a very nice rhythm on the piano. Next, we have My Tears Ricochet because it's so personal and unique and just a very rich fictional world. It goes a step farther than the breathing of life into Rebecca because this is kind of a character that Taylor's creating herself. It's not from a movie or anything. She's just creating this own world and voicing her frustrations having to do with this soured business relationship into this embittered tormentor, and there's a death and a funeral, and it's very, very visual. I also love the vocal harmonies. Next is Dear John because it walked so All Too Well could run. This was some seriously impressive writing at that age. The wailing guitar inspired by John Mayer's music is also just incredible subtle shade being thrown. Why would Taylor Swift date another musician and not employ their signature sound in her own music about them? Beautiful wording as well. Long Were the Nights. Next is Delicate because I'm obsessed with that beat and the hip-hop inspired flow. Long Nights with Your Hands Up in My Hair. Echoes of your footsteps on the stairs. It hits so nice. We're talking about hands, we're talking about feet. It's got a really nice rhythm to it. It has some amazing lyrics and it ranks pretty high in her discography for me, but this is the first time where the lyrics aren't a 10 out of 10 on a track 5. This one's maybe like an 8 out of 10 lyrically. Even Dear John is a tad bit weaker lyrically than the first 3, probably like a 9 out of 10. Next is The Archer. This is also an 8 out of 10 on lyrics. The bridge is pretty simple and subtracts just a bit for me because what's a good Taylor Swift lyric if you don't have a bridge that just takes your breath away? The live version unconsidered. It's on the same level as Delicate lyrically. It's detailed and it definitely has some great lines, but it does not get too complex. The only reason it's below Delicate is because of the production. I love the production of Delicate. For The Archer, the studio version lacks dynamic contrast. It's just facts. If I want to listen to The Archer, I'm going to listen to the live version so I can have the quiet moments and the powerful moments instead of just one monotonous musical background. Next is Cold As You. I thought this would be in last place, like how Debut is my least favorite album because I'm basic, but there are some impressive lines. As I said, I like the scathing aspect that was later used in All Too Well. It's got some serious standout lines for her age, as I mentioned before. It's better than I remember it being, but it still doesn't hold a candle to her improvements that she made later on with track 5s. Next is White Horse. I love the metaphors and how the last chorus is changed up, but overall it's a little bit slow for me. Musically, it doesn't catch my ear too much. The instrumental breaks feel a little bit long when it's this slow. I'm more interested in when she starts singing, but then other than in the chorus, it uses cliches more than Cold As You, so the lyrics are also a bit of a weak spot in contrast with the other track 5s. And lastly is All You Had to Do Was Stay because I need a piano version of this. Why am I shaking my ass? The lyrics are even more cliche than in White Horse, and at this point in her career, she has shown us what she is capable of. There is no need to be doing these first draft lyrics for a track 5. The majority of the lines are recycled from a million other pop songs, save for maybe 2 or 3 lines with more originality in them. Her goal here was to fit with the radio-friendly pop vibe of $19.89. If you want to be sad, just go full Adele. It will get radio play. Please let me know down below what your ranking of all of Taylor Swift's track 5s are, and any thoughts you may have on the analysis portion of this video. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Please leave me any requests you might have down in the comments below. If you want to follow me on my Instagram, it is right here. And if you want to follow me on my TikTok, that is right here. I will see you all next week for another video, and I hope you have an amazing day. Bye guys.